Quick question. When you squeeze that bear-shaped bottle over your morning toast, what exactly are you pouring? Most people assume honey is honey, something bees made. The reality is considerably darker. We feel a huge amount of what UK supermarkets sell as honey has been heated beyond recognition, stripped of its nutrients, blended from sources nobody will name, and in some cases barely qualifies as honey at all. The 5 to never buy. Number 5, Gail's Clear Honey. Let's start with a name that feels trustworthy because it's been around for decades. Gail's. It sounds like a Yorkshire beekeeper, rolling hills, traditional apiary, someone's grandmother involved somewhere. What it actually is a brand now owned by Hain Celestial, an American food conglomerate that also manufactures tofu and rice cakes. Let that sink in. Pick up a jar and read the label. Blend of EU and non-EU honeys. 5 words that should stop you in your tracks. Non-EU means they won't tell you. It could be Argentina, it could be China, it could be multiple countries blended together until the origin is entirely untraceable. And why would a producer want their honey untraceable? That's not a question with a reassuring answer. Here's what frustrates me about Gail's specifically. It's priced like a premium product. You're paying for the heritage, the font, the sense of something traditional. But you're getting a commodity blend from wherever happened to be cheapest that quarter, pasteurized at high heat to give it that supermarket shelf life. The enzymes that make real honey genuinely beneficial, vastly reduced. The pollen that would let scientists trace exactly where it came from, pretty much filtered out. I tried it on a crumpet. It was sweet. That is genuinely the best I can say. It was sweet in the way that golden syrup is sweet. It tasted of nothing you could put a name to. Number 4, Tesco Clear Honey. This one is almost too easy to include, but it needs saying because Tesco is where most of Britain does its weekly shop, and the own brand honey is exactly what you'd expect when a supermarket asks its supply chain for the lowest possible price on a product. There's that phrase again, blend of EU and non-EU honeys. But here's what that label is actually telling you if you know how to read it. Real honey contains pollen. Pollen is traceable. Scientists can take a jar of genuine honey, analyze the pollen, and identify almost exactly where those bees were foraging. It's a fingerprint. Ultra-filtered honey, pushed through such fine filters that pollen is usually entirely removed, cannot be traced. There is a reason some producers don't want you to know where their honey came from, and it isn't a good one. The Tesco own brand honey has sat on those shelves for years and nobody questions it because it's Tesco. It must be fine. Except fine is doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting there. It's technically food, it won't hurt you. But we feel it represents the absolute flaw of what honey can be. Delivered in a plastic bottle and sold to you as a wholesome staple when it's closer to an industrial byproduct. It's on toast every morning in a million British kitchens, and almost nobody stops to wonder if there's something better. Number 3, Asda Clear Honey. I'll be real with you. I almost didn't put this on the list separately from the Tesco own brand because they're essentially the same product made by the same kind of supply chain logic. But Asda earns a worse spot for one specific reason: the way it's packaged. A large bottle, a low price. It looks like a bargain, but a bargain implies you're getting value. You're getting a substandard product with a misleadingly wholesome label, and the bargain framing is precisely designed to stop you asking whether you should spend a bit more for something real. A food blogger did a side-by-side test last year. She put Asda honey and a local raw honey on 2 slices of sourdough and asked a few friends to try both without being told which was which. The Asda honey, she wrote, tasted like someone made a syrup and forgot to add a flavour. The raw honey she described as tasting like the countryside smelled on a summer morning. That gap between those 2 descriptions is what you're accepting every time you reach for the budget bottle without thinking. What really gets me is the label copy. Produced with care. Care by whom? Where? Under what conditions? It tells you nothing and relies entirely on the assumption that honey is honey, so why bother asking? Number 2, Morrison's Clear Honey. Everything that applies to the Tesco and Asda versions applies here. Blend, unspecified origins, filtered, heat treated. But Morrison's earns the number 2 spot for something a little more specific. Real honey generally crystallizes. It's what honey does, a natural result of its genuine sugar composition shifting over time. When honey doesn't crystallize or behaves oddly in the jar, it's worth pausing. Pure glucose syrup crystallizes very differently from real honey, and if a product has been extended with other sugars, something that is said to happen in global honey supply chains with uncomfortable regularity, you'd start to see exactly that. I'm not making a direct accusation. I'm saying, pay attention to how your honey behaves. A British beekeeper posted online once said something I've thought about since. If your honey never goes cloudy or grainy in the cupboard, you probably aren't eating honey. That's not proof of fraud. But it's worth thinking about the next time you see a jar on your shelf that has stayed perfectly clear and perfectly liquid for 6 months without doing anything at all. The Morrison's version doesn't cost much, and in fairness, you get what you pay for. The problem is that most people think they're paying for honey. Number 1, Rowse Squeezy Clear Honey. And here we are, the bear-shaped bottle, the one in more British kitchens than any other, the one I feel genuinely sad about putting at number 1. Rowse is the dominant honey brand in the UK, and that dominance is built almost entirely on brand recognition and cheerful packaging, rather than the quality of what's inside. The label has bees on it. The website talks warmly about working with beekeepers worldwide. It sounds lovely. It is not lovely. Rowse Squeezy Clear Honey is a heat-treated, ultra-filtered blend of unspecified international origins. The heating process, pasteurization, destroys a significant portion of the enzymes, antioxidants, and naturally occurring beneficial compounds that make honey worth choosing over a spoonful of sugar. The filtering removes the pollen. The blending removes any possibility of knowing where it came from. By the time it reaches that cheerful plastic bottle, we feel it has been processed into something that shares a name with honey and very little else. Here's what makes Rowse particularly difficult to forgive. They also sell raw honey. They produce it. They absolutely know the difference between what they put in the squeezy bottle and what genuine, unprocessed honey is. They make both, and they price the squeezy bottle as if the distinction doesn't exist. Rowse is now owned by Valio Foods, an Irish food group with revenues in the hundreds of millions. This is not a company of passionate beekeepers. This is a company that acquired a trusted British brand and has been monetizing that trust ever since. I spread it on a thick slice of white bloomer, the kind of bread you want honey to really show up on. It was sweet, inoffensive, completely without character. It tasted of nothing you could point at or describe, and that anonymity is the whole point. When your honey has no origin, no traceable source, no particular bees or flowers behind it, it has no flavor that would give it away. You've been eating this for years, probably. Most of us have. It's not your fault, but now you know. The 5 that are actually real. Right. That's the bad news done. Here's the good news. There are still brands getting this right, and some of them are easier to find than you think. Number 5, Duchy Organic Honey. You could be forgiven for assuming Duchy Organic is a prestige label on ordinary products, a royal warrant attached to something that hasn't earned it. With the honey, that assumption would be wrong. Duchy Organic Honey is certified organic, and organic certification matters considerably more with honey than it does with most foods. It means the bees are mostly foraging in areas free from pesticide-treated crops within a defined radius. It means no antibiotics in hive management. It means the product has been handled in a way that keeps intact what was actually in it. The ingredient list is one item: honey. That's it. My jar crystallized beautifully over a couple of months, turning thick and golden in the way that real honey does. And spread on a toasted English muffin with a small amount of butter, it tasted genuinely of something. Floral, slightly earthy, with a warmth that sat at the back of the throat. It tasted like a place. I couldn't tell you which place, but somewhere real at a specific time of year. Available at Waitrose, not the cheapest thing on the shelf. Absolutely worth it. Number 4, Manuka Doctor Manuka Honey. Right, I'll be upfront. Manuka honey has a problem, and the problem is that everyone wants a piece of it. The market is flooded with products claiming MGO ratings and UMF certifications that don't hold up the moment anyone looks closely. Some of what's labelled as Manuka honey in the UK has been independently tested and found to contain no actual Manuka whatsoever. It's arguably the most faked subcategory in an already heavily faked product sector. So why is Manuka Doctor on the good list? Because they test every single batch. Independent verification. The MGO rating on the jar corresponds to the actual methyl glyoxal content inside it, the compound responsible for genuine Manuka honey's distinctive antimicrobial properties. They're not printing numbers on a label and hoping nobody checks. They put in the work and it shows. It also genuinely tastes different from anything else on this list. Rich, slightly medicinal, almost resinous. This is not honey you spread absent-mindedly on a crumpet. It's honey you use deliberately, consciously. On a slice of dense dark rye bread, it's extraordinary. You are tasting something that came from a specific plant in a specific part of New Zealand, and no amount of processing has stripped that away. Yes, it costs more. The question isn't whether it's expensive, it's whether you're paying for something real. In this particular market, that distinction is worth every penny. Number 3, Hilltop honey. This is the one I want to hand to everyone who thinks choosing better honey means specialist shops, complicated labels, and spending more than feels reasonable. Hilltop honey is British, made in Wales, and it's sitting on the shelves at Sainsbury's right now. You walk past it every week. You just need to pick it up instead of the Rowse. What makes it different? They source both from British beekeepers and trusted global partners. But crucially, they map and audit their entire supply chain, so they know exactly where their honey comes from. No vague "somewhere in the world" blends with a shrug. Their raw honey is genuinely raw. Not heat-treated, not ultra-filtered, not blended with sauces they'd rather not name. And they're transparent about it in a way that the supermarket brands would never dream of being. The raw wildflower variety has a thick, almost opaque texture because it hasn't been through the filtering process that strips everything interesting out of it. On a slice of granary bread, the nutty, seedy kind, it has real depth. Floral but earthy with a slightly waxy finish that reminds you it came from a comb and not a processing facility. I'll be honest about my first impression, I wasn't sure. I was so conditioned to that clear, sweet, featureless supermarket honey that something with actual character felt strange. That adjustment took about a week. After a week, going back to the clear stuff felt like going back to margarine after discovering proper butter. You can't unknow the difference. This is one of the most worthwhile swaps you can make in your kitchen. One product, same supermarket, probably a pound or two more. The gap in quality is not a pound or two wide. Number 2, Wainwright's Raw Honey. Some people have never heard of Wainwright's. That's part of why it's here. It's exactly the kind of brand that deserves far more shelf space than it gets. You'll find it in Waitrose and in the specialty sections of some larger stores. It has not been absorbed by a conglomerate. It has not been reformulated for a longer shelf life. It has not had its interesting parts removed, so it behaves predictably on a shelf for 12 months. Raw means what it says. The honey has been extracted from the comb and filtered only lightly, to remove wax and physical debris, nothing more. It has not been heated beyond the natural temperature of the hive. It retains its enzymes, its pollen, its full nutritional profile. It is as close as you can get in a jar to what the beekeeper actually lifted out of the hive, and you can taste all of that. I had it on a plain white baguette. Deliberately plain, deliberately simple, because I wanted nothing competing with it, and it was complex in a way that is genuinely difficult to articulate to someone who has only ever eaten supermarket honey. Sweet, yes, but tangy at the edges, faintly floral, with a finish that kept shifting for a moment after you swallowed. Real honey has layers. Processed honey has one note, sugar. One reviewer described it as the most honest food I've eaten in years. That might sound like an overstatement. Once you understand what you've been eating, it doesn't. Number 1, Cotswold Raw honey. You may have to look for this one. It's available through Waitrose and Ocado and in some specialist food sections, but it's not going to be on a promotional end-of-aisle display with a cheerful sticker anytime soon. That's because it's made in small batches, and small batches is not a euphemism here. It means the bees forage in the Cotswolds. The honey is harvested in the Cotswolds. It is not blended with anything from anywhere else. It has not been heated. It has not been filtered beyond the absolute minimum. And it cannot be mass-produced, because the moment you tried, you would destroy the thing that makes it worth having. Open a jar and it's often already crystallized, naturally, beautifully, with a texture almost like very fine fudge in places. This is not a defect. This is not something that went wrong in storage. This is honey behaving exactly the way honey should behave when nobody has interfered with it. You can warm it gently if you prefer it liquid, but try it as it is first. Spread it thick on a slice of wholemeal toast and actually pay attention. There is a note of clover, a hint of something almost grassy, a warmth that sits at the back of your throat long after you've swallowed. It tastes of a specific place at a specific time of year. You are not imagining it. That is what honey has always tasted like when the bees are healthy, the forage is right, and nobody along the way decided that what nature produced wasn't quite convenient enough for a supermarket shelf. This is number one because it asks nothing of you except that you slow down for 30 seconds and taste what's actually there. Here's the thing about honey that the food industry is hoping you'll never find out. It is possibly the third most faked food product in the world behind olive oil and milk. Honey is frequently reported in the media and by food fraud agencies. The UK imports far more honey than our bee population could ever produce, which means a significant proportion of what we buy is blended beyond recognition, extended with sugar syrups, or sourced from countries with very different standards of production. None of that is disclosed in any meaningful way on the label. The phrase blend of EU and non-EU honeys is a legal allowance, not an honest ingredient declaration. It is designed to tell you the minimum. It succeeds at that. You don't have to overhaul everything. Hilltop honey is in Sainsbury's. The price difference between that and a Rowse squeezy bottle is probably £1. The difference in what you're actually eating is the difference between food and a reasonable imitation of food. Real honey usually crystallizes. Real honey has a flavor that shifts with the season and the source. Real honey doesn't look like something poured from a tap in a soft drink factory. If your honey has been perfectly clear and perfectly liquid and perfectly identical for 6 months in your cupboard, it's worth asking what was done to it to make that possible, and whether whatever was done left anything worth eating at all. Start reading the labels, start asking the question, and next time reach for something that actually has an answer.